Hey everyone, my name's Ian Scheffler. I recently wrote this book, Cracking the Cube, Going Slow to Go Fast and Other Unexpected Turns in the World of Competitive Rubik's Cube Solving. Maybe you've seen me at a competition or heard me on the radio. Thanks very much to Lights Camera Cubing for having me on today. So I started cubing back in 2005, but I wouldn't even say I was cubing because I didn't know cubing was cubing. I just solved cubes at summer camp because I happened to sit next to a kid named Toby Mao. And I know to some folks nowadays the Mao brothers are a bit like, you know, Methuselah and Moses, like they just started cubing so long ago no one knows who they were, but they were actually the best cubers in the world at the time, or Toby was. He was hired to teach Will Smith for that sequence in The Pursuit of Happiness that a lot of us have seen. And I didn't know what he was doing, but the first day on camp I sat next to him and he was just playing with his cube under the table and really not paying attention. And I was a little unsure what to make of this, and he pulled out his hands and he'd solved the cube. But he taught me to solve the cube, and I thought that was the end of the story until I finished college in 2012 and wanted to write a book, and I found out there was going to be a national Rubik's Cube championship. And to me it was so incongruous that this would be happening in a casino that I had to check it out. And lo and behold, Toby was actually one of the organizers or one of the staffers, and I asked him, can I write about this? And he challenged me and said, well, what do you mean? Like, you're just going to write about it? Like, aren't you going to do it? And years earlier in my summer camp yearbook, he challenged me to go sub 20. And I never thought I'd be able to do this. I know a lot of us when we start cubing, you know, look at people who are really fast. And at the time, you know, that I met him, Toby was like world class when that was like 10 seconds. Yeah, but I think for a lot of us, cubing is about breaking our own boundaries. You know, it's not us versus each other, it's us versus the cube. And so I got, you know, fell down the rabbit hole and I got more and more into it. And one of the interesting things is, like, you know, here I am at a competition something like 6 months after this book came out. It comes out in paperback on July 4th, and it also comes out in France in a French translation this fall. But anyways, the book is basically like a dive into the world of cubing. Like, if you're a cuber and you've ever wondered, like, where did this come from? Why was it invented? You know, if you're someone who, you know, is a parent looking at this and wonders why is your child so obsessed with this cube, that's a question I wanted to answer too, because the first competition I showed up to, it was just like, you know, I stood outside this door in the Riviera Hotel and Casino, and it sounded like a hurricane was taking place inside because there was so much noise. I could almost feel a vibration. And then I opened the door and it was just hundreds of people doing this, you know, over and over and over. And I'd never seen, you know, more than one person do that at once. Just seen, you know, a couple kids at summer camp. And so it was really mind-blowing to see hundreds of people from all around the world with flags hanging on the walls, solving Rubik's Cubes, Pyraminxes, Megaminxes, like 5x5s, all these different puzzles, blindfolded with their feet, one-handed, etc. And I didn't know how they were doing any of it, and I wanted to find out. So, you know, I think one of the really cool things about the cube is that it kind of represents so many things about human nature, like how we like to create order out of chaos. It's almost like having a world in the palm of your hand, which is why it never gets old. You know, if you ever see me at a competition, like, feel free to come and talk about the book. I'm happy to answer questions. There's going to be some exciting new developments potentially regarding, like, you know, different adaptations of it in new media. And oh, one more thing I wanted to say is, so, like, when I said earlier that, like, you know, if you want to learn more about where this came from, so, like, what I like to write about, and I've written stories for The New Yorker, The Guardian, The LA Times about various things. I like writing about something where, like, everybody knows what it is, but maybe you don't know everything about it. Like, everyone on Earth knows what the Rubik's Cube is. I found photos from National Geographic, you know, archived articles of, you know, kids in the Amazon who had had very little contact with Western society playing with these, just as engrossed as we are. It really touches on something universal. And yet so much of the history as I looked into it was kind of hidden. Like, you know, it took me 2 years to get to meet Erno Rubik, the inventor of the cube. I like to think of him as, you know, the Willy Wonka of Eastern Europe. He made this very successful thing. He likes his privacy. You know, I went all the way to Budapest in Hungary, where he lives and is from, and I didn't know until the day before I interviewed him if I'd actually get to interview him. Like, I went all this way, like halfway across the world, and I was just like, I really hope this works out. And fortunately it did, which I write about in the book. So I think, you know, again, one of the coolest things about that I learned while writing this is just that the cube is, you know, it really has limitless possibility. Like, you know, there's people who are getting into cubing now and becoming big names like Max Park, who I didn't actually feature in the book because they were just getting started. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to hit up my YouTube channel or Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram. Again, thanks to Lights Camera Cubing for having me on. If what I said sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll check out the book. Thanks very much.